Hello there and welcome to Eventful Arabia. I'm Eithne Treanor, I'm your host for the show, and I'm delighted to be joined now by Carolina D'Souza as my guest today, and she is a personal brand strategist.
Spoiler alert, we all have a personal brand, and not all of us give it the kind of time and nurturing and attention to build reputation and build credibility. And events are a great way to actually do that. Why wouldn't you want it? It's a cost of not doing. The personal brand is a sum total of your lived experience, of who you are as a person, how you show up in the world. So if people don't know who you are, how can they work with you? And events are one of the most effective visibility tools out there. So what events does, it's a curated set of your audience. And why would you not want to use that to your benefit?
Hello there and welcome to Eventful Arabia. This is the podcast and the show that brings you behind the scenes in terms of what's happening in this very exciting and very interesting world of events in the Middle East region here. I'm Eithne Treanor, I'm your host for the show, and I'm delighted to be joined now by Carolina D'Souza as my guest today, and she is a personal brand strategist. Thank you for being here.
Lovely to be here.
Now, many people might wonder what personal branding has to do with the events industry. And that's the question I'm going to actually start it off with you when we look at it. People might feel personal branding is more of a personal thing, but actually, talk to me a little bit about its placement, I suppose, when it comes to events.
Thank you. So personal branding, what it is not, is just a title or a job title that you have or the profession that you're from. Rather, it is a sum total of your lived experience, of who you are as a person, how you show up in the world. And events are one of the most effective visibility tools out there, because not only does it allow you to have influence at scale, it's reputation at scale. So typically for, let's say, a networking event that you go for, you might say, well, okay, there's a small group of people, and you compare that with, let's say, social media. You go on, but you don't know who you're talking to. So what events does, it's a curated set of your audience. And why would you not want to use that to your benefit?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. Let's have a look at what's at an event, and particularly in this region too. We're looking at big conferences, big exhibitions. And of course, there's a personal touch point from the minute you walk in the door. So who has to be wary of their personal branding? Clearly, it's going to be the speakers who are on stage. It will be the moderators. It will be the presenters. But I have a feeling too, it's also the people in the exhibition booths, the meet and greet people. Talk to me a little bit about how maybe everybody needs to be thinking of personal branding. Do you agree?
Absolutely. So, spoiler alert, we all have a personal brand. The difference is not everyone curates and looks at it in a way to build reputation and to build credibility. So in the events field, one of the things that you would think of right away, well, you're in the front of people. You are there for a purpose. So showing up as your whole self, showing up in a way that creates an experience that is memorable, that people remember what you stand for, what you bring to the table. These are all part of your personal brand. So in an events environment, if you look at the whole ecosystem, right from someone welcoming you or from the experience of someone on stage, how do they make you feel? You know, what is it that you get from them is the key message, and the material that you get from there. All of that is part of your personal branding exercise and reputation that you build along the way. So it is for everyone.
Now, a lot of people at some big events, and particularly events, industrial events perhaps, and commercial events here in the region, might think that just having the expertise is good enough. But I'm getting the feeling that you say it needs to be maybe a little bit beyond that. And I do know, I have seen how people present and how they actually deliver their information. This is thankfully beginning to change over the years, because I think it's the penny has dropped that you want to connect with people a lot more. But, you know, clearly not, you know, being an expert is essential. You know, that's part of the reason you're there. But what do you need to do more to make sure that that expertise will be, I think, valued and cherished by an audience?
Okay, so the simple thing is you cannot outsource personality. right? We all have our expertise, our lived experiences, the values that we bring to the table. So what makes it engaging to talk to someone who has a large body of work is how do they make you feel at the end of it, right? We are all experts in different fields that we have. How do you present yourself? How do you actually share that knowledge? What is the area in particular that you want to bring to the table? And all of that ties into you as one package, if you think about it. So you want to, whether you're a panelist or you're a speaker, or let's say in one of my earlier roles where I was handling leadership profiling, leadership was about which event should I be at? Where should I be seen? How do I get, the eyeballs? How do I get the attention? And attention is one of the most expensive currencies today in the market. So events make it one of the easiest ways to say, hey, look at me. So why wouldn't you want to use that currency to your advantage and bring the whole self and bring your best selves to the table?
I want to talk about bringing your whole self, because I have a few issues around that sometimes. And I think people take that very literally. It was almost like dress down Friday in the workplace that, people got a little bit carried away. These are still professional events. And there is, I think, a level of expectation that people, want to see. And there is a concept of, how people dress, how people look. Talk to me a little bit about that idea of professionalism versus just showing up as what some people might perceive as their real self in maybe an over casual way. And I think that's beginning to happen sometimes.
Okay, so I'd like to talk about authenticity. People talk, that's a word that's been bandied around, saying, being authentic. I actually want to change that to being aligned, because being aligned allows you to follow your purpose, to still be true to who you are, your values, and what you're there for at that particular event, but also be aligned with the environment that you're in. So there is a little bit of, yes, I want to bring my best self and my real self, but also in the professional context that it allows for. Right? So it has to be everything from how you present yourself, how you carry yourself, how you bring yourself to the table with the expertise that you bring. And also, I think to a large degree in the relationship nurturing space, because when you're sitting, let's say, with a member of a leadership team, vis-a-vis someone that you're talking to, across a booth or with your panelists, yes, you want to be warm, you want to be courteous, you want to bring all of that to the table, but you also want context. So dress down Fridays, perhaps not as much, depending on the type of event, but largely use context and alignment. So still bring your authentic self, but allow it to be with purpose and with intention.
I like that concept of alignment, yes, because the one thing you don't want to do at an event is distract from the message and the purpose of what you're there. And sometimes that can actually happen, that the personality becomes more than actually the process and the message of what's intended. How can people, most speakers at big events, unless they own their own company and unless they're perhaps entrepreneurs, are working for a corporation or some organization. So how can they align all of the context and the message of being a corporate spokesperson and also, making sure that they're being their personal best?
I think two ways to look about it is go broad, so go industry, so you fit in as part and bring the dialogue. And the second one is go narrow, look into what you are bringing to your contribution and try to connect the dots. So the context over here is because, again, having worked with leaders across different industries, a lot of them like, can people, can you do something for me? Or I want to establish a sense of influence. The truth is people need to like you before they can trust you. And once they trust you, they start working with you. So you cannot expect to start selling to people the moment they meet you, right? They need to have background. They need to have context. So really to think about proactive reputation management, if you please, in this context. So you go up, yes, you want to talk about your company, but you also want a bit of your personality because you are, yes, you have your title, you have your company, but it's also you and what makes you you. Bring a little bit of that to the table as well. So have that context, go broad, go narrow, and bring that industry context as well to your personality.
Also, I think we look at, industries that change leadership and change CEOs quite frequently, and
yes,
more people change. So in many ways, you don't want to finish a career with one company and that be your branding and that's all you're known for. You still have a body of expertise. You're still very relevant to speak about what's happening in the industry. So would you say that that's actually very important, particularly for CEOs, that it's like life does not end when the tenure at one company ends, and then you have to wait until you become, a new brand at another company. Maintaining, I suppose, your visibility. How important is that? And sometimes I think it's maybe neglected a little bit.
It is neglected, and a lot of people get complacent, especially when you're in a leadership position where you think you're the CEO, doors open, opportunities come knocking. There is no requirement from your side to do anything different because the doors are open for you. So a good way to think about it over here is your personal brand is much like us as human beings. We're evolving, we change, and we adapt. So along that route, your leadership role in one company is one role, is one facet of your personality. And that shouldn't be the case because as human beings, we are multifaceted. We have passions, we have other things. So in one of the conversations, I once met a board exec leader who had a passion for biohacking. And he wanted to know how to marry that narrative into his performance as a CEO, as a board member. So you look back and you say, well, it's not always all corporate. It can be personality. It can be passion that you build into your personal brand. And you take that along with you, because once you build that kind of currency, that kind of influence, you carry that influence to your next job and your next role. So why wouldn't you want to do it?
I think that is so important. And sometimes I do feel that people in that leadership role, once they finish with one company, it's almost like they go dark for a while, and then they have to reemerge as almost the new CEO of a new company. So I think there's probably a big focus on people beginning to do that and beginning to realize it, because I think it is so important. You talk about, and we look at events here in the region, where there are several thousands of people in attendance. You have an audience. You have the power to influence. You have a platform. Again, what do we need to do to make sure people can actually realize that and work with the organizers, the event organizers, the publicists perhaps around the whole event? Because there's a lot more, I think, that people can do to raise their visibility at events. And it gives them a huge opportunity.
100%. So it's an inside out answer. So once you realize for yourself, what do you want to be known for? And you say, well, my goal is X, it's to get to this kind of leadership position. Well, what are the events that are going to support you in that journey? Or if you're a CEO or you want to be someone known for a thought leadership in a particular area, what are the events around that sector? And that allows you to kind of mix and match, or, say, well, this sector makes a lot of sense for me, but let me see what are the conferences happening over there. Who's my audience? Because once you map who the stakeholders you want to reach, that event becomes such a neat fit. So be strategic, work inside out, and work with your goals. Not all events are equal. Not all conferences will be useful for you, but there'll be some that will absolutely change the trajectory of your career, because it allows for that kind of reputation building at scale, that influence at scale. So you want to be strategic about those.
Then, of course, you have events that are live streamed, which is another huge advantage for people.
Yes.
So it's not just about showing up to an event perhaps in Dubai or in Saudi Arabia or something else.
Absolutely.
The absolute, prospects that hundreds of thousands of people are going to see this speech, see what you talk about. Sometimes I don't think people realize that either, and how important that is as well.
It is. And the fact that it's live streamed, which means that you can reach thousands or hundreds of thousands in one go. And that automatically gives you reputation at scale, influence and scale. Why wouldn't you want to be a part of that?
I mean, the concept of personal branding, I think, has given every individual its your own marketing department.
100%.
And again,
make that communication as well.
Absolutely. And when you're at an event, you're probably going to have some of that video that's going out, particularly if it is live streamed, and if it sits on a YouTube or it's somewhere else that you can use it. So you can repurpose that.
Absolutely.
You can also work with the organizers in terms of their social media reach, your social media reach. And again, I look at LinkedIn at many of the big events that are going on. And some people who have been on the panel, they might throw up one picture. Mm-hmm. They might not. A lot of the times they don't. So people are missing out when they don't do that, are they?
Yeah. So I look at it as an ecosystem of material that you bring in, the tools that you have. So you go on an event, yes, you have a piece of recording, which you can repurpose for yourself, for your brand, for your visibility. Then you have what happens at a conference. And a lot of time people talk about white papers or putting material in, or knowledge banks or think tanks. There is so much material and knowledge sharing that's happening at so many levels. You want to be able to leverage that, either for you as a brand, for you as a company, and just for the longevity as an industry insider, and to bring back some kind of value. Because it's not the kind that you go up, you speak for a few minutes and everyone forgets about it. How about we take the onus to actually build some kind of momentum to what has been shared?
And also, I think it's a very competitive landscape out there. So if you get an opportunity to speak at an event, you're one of the chosen few.
Yeah.
It could be only 5 people on a panel. How do you see events kind of helping promote people in this very competitive space? Because it should get you more notice.
It should, but with the tension being one of the most expensive currencies out there, I think it would really and largely depend on the person and what they choose to do with their brand. So having worked with leadership teams where you had a CEO saying, I want a keynote address, but it was the wrong format, it was not the right time. So it's a combination of things that make you go with, that really makes sense for me to do. So instead of looking at it as competition, I think look at it as a complementing addition to your journey as a brand. Some events will work for you, some events might not work for you, and be selective about the ones that actually do, and take it to the entire 360. Do your podcast, do maybe a piece on the media, write something about it, do it in your perhaps a white paper if it does lend itself to that degree, but turn that into something that would add value.
What do you think are, I suppose, some of the mistakes that people make in terms of being part of a big event, of a big conference, of a big exhibition? And I mean, what do they lose out by not taking advantage of that? And they might say it's time, it's effort, it's energy. They don't know how to do it. Why just show up at an event and do nothing?
I think I'll go with something I read quite recently. The cost of doing nothing is a really hefty cost. So when you know that events allow you for visibility, allow a sense of you to build momentum for your brand and maybe the company brand that you represent, it gives you influence, it gives you reputation. Why would you not want to take advantage of that? And not taking advantage of that, the cost is much higher. So for those who are maybe toying with the idea, try it. And then work your way through. Maybe some might be really beneficial, some might be not so much. But unless you try it for yourself and learn, you will not know the actual power of actually going and reaching thousands, if not millions, or whichever event that is out there for you.
It's so true. When you talk about, leadership strategy, looking at events around the world in terms of what events perhaps the CEO should be speaking at. Yes, they should choose that very carefully because they could probably be doing an event every week.
Yeah.
Again, come back to that strategy. And for people perhaps who are maybe new to this, how do they get started? What advice would you give to people who are looking at perhaps being part of events and then maybe saying, okay, this is how you should go about it?
I'll say start small. I normally do that when with anyone saying, how do I get started? Start small, get comfortable. So it might be a small networking event that you want to be a part of. Start with events where you could be a part of a smaller group, and it's the reps, and build your strength as you go, because you can't go from never doing an event to going and doing a keynote address. You're just not going to get that level of confidence. Maybe you want to start with smaller events, and also be strategic in the choice of events, because they have to add value not only to the people around, but to yourself, to your brand, to the business that you're representing. So it has to be a win-win for both parties. And while we talk about there's so much noise out there, let's all take a vow or make sure that we add value wherever we go.
I mean, it has to be about adding value. But also, I think sometimes events, when you're there on the big stage for a lot of different people, your expertise shines through. You work with a lot of people who are pivoting careers. Now, you shouldn't be on stage looking for a new job, but sometimes that's actually where things might happen.
Yes.
And other leaders may see your performance, may listen to your knowledge and think, wait a minute, we might want to hire somebody like that.
Absolutely.
That's probably something people should keep in mind when they're actually going to events as well, adding value and also looking for value back. Ask not what you can do for your event, but what your event can do for you, perhaps.
So I look at it as a lot of visibility. So if people don't know who you are, how can they work with you? And events do really give you that platform to be able to put your name out there, to put your entire personality and your expertise packaged really well. And who knows, maybe in a keynote speech. And that's all it would take.
It can make a big difference, I think. Talk to me a little bit about just, you talk about showing up as your whole self, but your wellness and all of that. I mean, I've seen some tired speakers in my day.
Okay.
And, when you're showing up for an event, I always believe it's that last little bit of energy. You might only have to speak for 5 minutes. You're putting all your effort into a panel. You should come giving your absolute best. But, any advice in terms of how people can actually make sure that they keep that energy builded and deliver, their absolute best at any event?
I think just remember what it's doing for you and what's doing for others and hold yourself accountable to that.
Now, we look at, I suppose, the prospects that are there, and it's endless in terms of doing it. But where do you see events, I suppose, shifting or changing, or, where the advantages might be in a couple of years in terms of what people should be looking out for?
I'm not entirely sure whether it's to do with a shift in trends, perhaps, or the way the industry would consume. But I think with content creation, the volume of content creation be something that would be of perspective for event producers and for conferences, because they're doing the same thing, producing content. But how do you then say you're different? I think there will be a time there'll be so much, it might be a sense of overwhelm, saying, oh my God, there's so much going on. Which one do I go to and which one do I participate? And a good way to think about it, again, go back to what is the foundation, who you are as a person, what do you stand for, what do you want to be known for, will it add value, will you add value? And then that would hopefully bridge the gaps which we can't control.
And what do you say to people who might think that they don't need a personal brand? I mean, is it something that automatically people are going to begin to realize that if you're going to take part in events, and you're going to be on a local stage, an industry stage, a global stage, almost by default, you're going to get a personal brand?
I think I'll go back to what I started with. Spoiler alert, we all have a personal brand, and not all of us give it the kind of time and nurturing and attention to build reputation and build credibility. And events are a great way to actually do that. Why wouldn't you want it? It's a cost of not doing. And if that cost is going to be really high, it'll be career opportunities, perhaps even things that could lead to beautiful places, which you don't know because you've not explored it.
See, there it is. I love that. Yeah, it's just the possibilities that are out there, and really hoping that I think everybody takes advantage of it, because it's an industry that does serve as a platform for so many people around the world, so many experts, artists, scientists, engineers, industry specialists, all
Absolutely.
of that. And to not take advantage of that platform, it's such a shame. I love what you're talking about. So there you go. It's all about your personal brand, and make sure that shines through when it comes to the events industry, because we need inspiring and engaging people up there on the stage, and building a personal brand, I think, is part and parcel of it. What do you think? Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll leave it there. Carolina D'Souza, thank you so much for being with us. And for all of you watching Eventful Arabia, make sure that you're the big event at our next venue here, and make sure you polish up that personal brand. We'll be looking forward to seeing you on a stage near here.